Welcome to my podcast, Resilience with Tasha Schuh. Today we're talking about the day that changed everything, the day of my accident. It was Tuesday, November 11th of 1997, and I remember that day clearly and not so clearly. Some moments are frozen in my memory, vivid, sharp, undeniable, and others feel almost like photographs that were handed to me later. Moments reconstructed from the voices of people who were there when I couldn't hold on to everything myself. But both are true. That morning, I woke up with two completely different emotions living inside the same body. One was heavy, one was electric. And I remember standing in my room, getting dressed, feeling excited in that very teenage, very ordinary way. Because a lot of what I had put on that morning was brand new. I had gone shopping that weekend with my boyfriend, and it felt huge. I was feeling independent. I was feeling grown up. And for the first time, I really felt like what it was like to be on my own. And I loved that feeling. And so I pulled on a brand new black sweatshirt that said, "Thank God I'm female." Funny saying, brand new jeans, new socks, and a brand new bra. Things I had spent my own hard-earned money on. Babysitting, working at my parents' grocery store, money I was proud of earning. And on my feet, my Reebok slip-ons. Those were not new. They were comfortable. They were the shoes that everyone loved back then and the ones I wore because they felt just right. I remember looking at myself and thinking, this feels like me. Like my life was opening, like I was in a really pivotal part of my life. No, my mom had been gone that weekend, and her friend were in Las Vegas, a trip they took every year. And when my mom was gone, things felt different. She was strict. My dad, he was more relaxed. I could stay out later. I could stay overnight at my boyfriend's house. And I felt closer to adulthood than I had ever before. And it was opening week for The Wizard of Oz. Now, I was a student at Ellsworth High School, a small school where everyone knows everybody and where theater mattered. And our productions were a big deal, not just for us students, but for the entire community. And theater wasn't just something that I did, it was part of who I was. And so the year before, I had actually played Sandy in Grease. Oh, lead role, big responsibility, big energy. This was my dream role. Oh my goodness, I love this musical. And I was beyond thrilled to play Sandy. It was so much fun. But this year, I had a smaller role. I was actually cast as a chorus member, and honestly, I was thankful. I was busy, sports, work at my parents' grocery store, babysitting, piano lessons, voice lessons, friends, a boyfriend. My life was full. And so having a chorus role meant I could still be part of theater without carrying the pressure of the lead. And it also gave me something I hadn't had before. I wanted to pursue theater professionally. I wanted to sing on stage. I planned to go to college with a theater major, music major. And being in the chorus let me really learn the behind the scenes pieces, scene changes, timing, logistics, things I hadn't learned when I was front and center with the lead as Sandy. And so it felt like growth. So when we arrived at the Sheldon Theatre the night before rehearsal, there was this electric feeling. Now, Red Wing was just across the river from where I lived, but it felt like a whole different world. Older, bigger, more professional. And the Sheldon wasn't our school auditorium. It was old. It was historical. It was professional. And the year before, when we performed Grease there, I had fallen in love with it. And so being back felt like stepping into something bigger than myself. But that morning carried weight too. This morning was hard because that year I was a junior in high school. And in our small town of about 2,500 people at the time, we had seen far too much tragedy. We had car accidents, farming accidents, sudden losses that shook families and rippled through the entire community. My graduating class was the only class that had not lost a classmate yet. And we all knew it. And it was something that we all whispered about, something we felt but never wanted to name. And 3 days earlier, my good friend Serena Murray had been in a car accident on her way to work. She was alone and nobody knew what had happened. And what made this so eerie was that Serena and I had talked about this before. Not just once, not in passing. We had talked many times about all the tragedies in our town, about how every other class had already lost someone, and the quiet fear of who might be next. And now, here she was. Now keep in mind, this was before cell phones, before instant updates, no carrying bridge, no group chats, just rumors, prayers, and waiting. And that morning at school, we had heard that she had had a stroke, that she might not survive. And all I wanted to do was go see her. I did not want to go to play practice that night. I wanted to be at the hospital. But then we were told that they weren't allowing visitors. So I told myself, I'll just go to rehearsal. I mean, that was what I was supposed to do. So that was what I was just going to do that. But my heart was so heavy. And I was worried about my friend. I could not stop thinking about her, worrying about her. And when the final bell rang, I loaded my car with friends and headed over to the Sheldon Theatre. Now, I just want to rewind a little bit and talk about the night before. This is really important. Now, the night before my accident, rehearsal was long. It was from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And we had moved everything over to the Sheldon Theatre and moved it inside, props, platforms, equipment, trying to make a production that we had rehearsed for months in a gym, suddenly work in a professional space. And toward the end of that rehearsal, we had a problem. One scene change completely fell apart. Scene changes, if you don't know, they're supposed to take 30 seconds. And this one took 6 minutes. 6 minutes of darkness, 6 minutes of awkward waiting, 6 minutes of really chaos. I'm just wondering how we were going to make this work with 3 nights until our opening night. And that 6 minutes felt endless. And by that point, everyone was exhausted. It was late. We were tired. So we went home knowing one thing: we will fix it tomorrow. But during the practice of that scene change, the director explained the details and the cautions that needed to be taken during the scene change rehearsal. But here's the thing. I wasn't part of that scene change yet. My prop, it was a set of wooden flowers from the Land of Oz, was off to the side of the stage. So while that explanation was happening, I was off stage, not involved and not listening closely, like a typical teenager. I missed the details. And I didn't realize that I was probably the only one who had. So on Tuesday, when we arrived, that's when the director reassigned our jobs. He added more people, changed positions, tightening the timing. And so when we got to rehearsal Tuesday evening, he explained those changes. And he told me that my prop had been moved onto a bridge. All I had to do was wait for the bridge to move onto the stage, take my prop off, put it in its proper place. Seems pretty simple. Actually easy. I mean, nothing about it felt dangerous. So back to our Tuesday night rehearsal. Play practice started at 5. And because we were so close to opening night, the director decided that we would rehearse the scene changes in full darkness, exactly how they would happen during the performances. So keep in mind, the night before, the lights had been on. We could see everything. But tonight, that was different. The lights went out and it was dark. And so I was standing on stage waiting for that bridge to move toward me. But what I didn't know, and what I wouldn't learn until much later, was everything that was happening under that bridge. What I didn't know was that just seconds before someone called my name, the trap door in the stage floor had been opened directly behind me. Now, in the stage version of The Wizard of Oz, there's a magical effect where Dorothy and the Scarecrow try to cross a bridge, and the Wicked Witch casts a spell that makes the bridge rotate so they can't get across. Now, to make that effect work, the bridge had to be positioned over an open trapdoor. So someone underneath could connect a pipe up underneath that bridge and manually turn it. That trapdoor had just been opened, and I was standing between the moving bridge and that opening. I didn't know it was there. Pitch black, keep that in mind. I didn't know that I was in the way. And then it all happened. Someone said my name. They said, Tasha, you need to move out of the way. And to me, the most logic way to move was backward. I took one step backward, and there was nothing. There was no floor, no ground. One moment I was on stage, and the next moment I was falling. The distance from the stage to the basement floor was 10 feet, but I was almost 6 feet tall. So when my head hit the concrete floor first, the doctors calculated it as a 16-foot fall. And I never lost consciousness. I remember everything. I remember the back of my head, the bottom of your head, that's that part of your brain that sticks out, hitting the cement floor first. That was what hit the floor first. And then my body basically folded over itself, landing on top of me with only one thing in between. And I remember the sound. I heard it. I actually heard my neck break. Now, I didn't know what that meant, and I just knew something had gone terribly wrong. But here's the weird thing, because I never lost consciousness. I already said that, but it's just important to note that, because the first emotion that I felt wasn't fear. It was actually embarrassment. I remember lying there thinking, oh my gosh, everybody is going to make fun of me at school tomorrow. Because I had always been a klutz. I was always tripping. I was always breaking a bone, falling off my bike. I was always doing something I regretted later. And so my first thought was, only you would do this. No, it seems strange, but that was the feeling that I had. And that thought stayed until I tried to move. Now, somewhere in my head, I was thinking about all the TV shows and movies that I had watched. And so I was like, don't move me. And I don't remember if I said that out loud. I don't remember if I was just thinking that. But at the same time, I was trying to get up, and I couldn't. Now, I had felt that sensation once before, years earlier, when my brother had played a prank on me while we were sledding. And I could not move for a moment afterward. So I really just convinced myself, like, this is like that. It'll pass. I'll be fine. I'm Tasha Schuh. I'm invincible. Nothing bad can happen to me. And as I lay there, my right arm was resting across the top of my body. And I had this thought that really cut through everything. And it was like, if you're paralyzed, you won't be able to move anything. And it was here that I slid my arm across my chest. And I remember taking a deep breath, like, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm not paralyzed. And then my friend Tiffany said, Tasha, you're going to be okay. Your toes are moving. And everything changed because I was not trying to move my toes. And yet they were moving. That's when fear arrived. Quiet, cold, absolute. Something was very wrong. And I don't know how it happened so fast, but friends it felt like instantly in the basement. And I heard them all buzzing around me, some saying call 911. And I remember hearing worried voices from friends, teachers, directors, trying to figure out what had just happened, what they were going to do. And I wanted to tell them not to move me. And at the same time, I tried to get up and I couldn't. And it was here a few minutes later, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics came down into the basement and immediately took over. They wrapped my neck in a brace and they carefully positioned me onto a stretcher. And everything shifted in that moment. This wasn't just a fall anymore. This was serious. Now, the stairway out of the basement was too steep and too narrow to safely get me up, so they They put me into the orchestra pit because it was on an elevator system, and they slowly raised it up to the stage level. And then they wheeled me out. I begged for my friend Tiffany to come with me. I was terrified. I just did not want to be alone. I did not want to get in that ambulance by myself. But of course she couldn't. It was a school function and she couldn't leave what was technically school property. But later I would learn something else that actually quite shocked me. Play practice resumed 5 minutes after I was taken away. 5 minutes. At the time, I know they didn't know how badly I was hurt, but when I found out later, that stung. It really stung. Like the show still had to go on. Like, oh, well, Tasha just fell through the trapdoor. Let's get back to it. But inside the ambulance, that was really where, I was hearing the fear in their voices of all the paramedics and the people that were there. I mean, all they kept talking about was my head. Her head, her head, her head, her head. All the way there because I landed on my head. And they were really worried about the head injury. Now, when I arrived at the hospital 2 blocks away from the theater, I was met by one of my good friend's moms who was on call as a nurse that night in the ER. And I kept asking her, am I paralyzed? Am I paralyzed? No, I really wasn't asking her the question to know the truth. I wanted her to be like, no, you're going to be okay. Don't worry. You're not paralyzed. But all she kept saying was, I don't know, Tasha. I don't know, Tasha. And that is when true fear overtook me. Because when my parents arrived, my mom told me that the first thing I said to her was, I can't feel my legs. And she said I looked so afraid. And that was when they told me shortly after that I would need to be airlifted. This is when I knew it was serious. I knew that this was not just a broken shoulder. That was what I actually thought, what I had. I was shooting pain down my shoulder. So I thought I broke my shoulder. I'll be okay. And when they told me that I was being airlifted, I was like, they do not airlift people for a broken shoulder. This is serious. Now, as they loaded me into the helicopter, reality set in fast. I had always wanted to ride in a helicopter. I used to look up at them at the sky and think, oh, that would be so cool. I just never imagined it would be like this. Not strapped down, not terrified, not broken. And I wanted my mom with me. I needed my mom with me, but she couldn't come. There was no room and there were rules. She was not coming on that helicopter. And that was one of the first moments when I realized something that I didn't yet have words for. I was not going to get my way. Not now, not later. For months to come. And as the helicopter lifted me into the air, fear washed over me in a way that I had never felt before. This was not embarrassment anymore. This wasn't confusion. This was deep, undeniable fear. The kind that settles into your chest and doesn't let go. And earlier that night, during a short break in rehearsal, I had gone across the street to the local bakery. I had a very healthy teenage dinner of donuts and hot chocolate. And now, strapped down and unable to move, my body decided it wanted nothing to do with it. And I started to vomit. They couldn't roll me. They couldn't move me. And so I aspirated. And I didn't understand what that would mean in the hours and days ahead. I just knew that things were getting worse. And I was so scared. I know I've already said that, but it's a fear that I had never felt. And it's a fear I hope I never feel again. And as the helicopter continued through the dark sky, I stared up at the ceiling above me. I wasn't thinking about theater. I wasn't thinking about school. I was terrified of what was coming next. Terrified. And I knew, without fully understanding how, that I was leaving the girl that I had been that morning behind. When the helicopter landed, I was taken not to a regular hospital room. I was taken straight to the intensive care unit. And in the next episode, I'm going to take you there with me, into the ICU, into the moment when the doctors finally had the answers, into the words that would change my world, my life forever. Because that Tuesday didn't just change everything, it marked the end of one life and the beginning of another. So I want to thank you for being here with me today. This isn't an easy story to tell, and I'm guessing to hear, but it means more to me than I can say that you're here for it. If this episode moved you, I would love for you to share it with someone and make sure that you're subscribed, because in the next episode, ICU, Life on the Edge, I'm going to take you into the intensive care unit, into the moment everything became real, and into the fight for my life that I didn't even know had begun. I'll see you next time.